going on to all my Barry blockheads out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again, breaking down this third season of Barry, episode 5, which was titled Crazy Time Shit Show, an episode in which we get the return of a character that I thought was dead. We see Fuches continues to recruit people, and Hank officially meets Cristobal's wife. We're discussing that and so much more in today's spoiler review, but before we get into all the details, make sure you're checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel and love early movie reviews, TV breakdowns, and live streams, well, come and join the community today by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And if you all enjoyed my breakdown of the latest episode of Barry, well, make sure you're liking and sharing this review to anyone and everyone you know that loves this show just as much as we do. But more importantly, go ahead and share your thoughts on this 5th episode in the comments below, from obviously your pros and your cons. But what now with Barry being this close to almost being shot, which we'll talk about that scene? Will Fuches be able to recruit Taylor's sister, and who else will he recruit out there? And Cristobal and Hank, they just can't be together. It's just not meant to be, apparently, but we'll be discussing that. But I want to know your thoughts on all the stuff that shook out in this episode, and of course your thoughts, theories, and predictions of what we can expect in the rest of this season. With that being said, speaking of season, I think we can go ahead and make the announcement that it is officially official that season 4 of Barry has been greenlit, and based on the article here, it looks like the filming will be starting pretty soon, if not now as I'm making this video. And as the headline states, Bill Hader will be directing all 8 episodes. So let's go ahead and dissect that for a minute before we get into tonight's discussion. That is awesome. We don't have to wait 20 years between another season, so I would assume if they're filming now, we can expect to get Barry season 4 by next spring potentially, which is great. But also, I mean, let's talk about the other headline. Bill Hader, great actor, great director. He's directing all 8 episodes of season 4. Now, where my mind goes is like, listen, that doesn't mean that he's going to die or be put in jail, or does it? But I think of, actors such as Jason Bateman, who did Ozark, which is one of my favorite shows on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, definitely recommend it. He directs a lot of the episodes there and is able to be, a lead character in the show. My Elena fans out there, Donald Glover directed the most episodes he's ever directed in this show this previous season, and he was also involved. But then, let me go back to Donald Glover. If you've seen Atlanta, this season in particular, he wasn't as heavily involved in front of the camera this time around, which then makes me think about Bill Hader. That's a lot of work to put on your lead actor to not only lead the show, but also direct the show, direct other actors, come up with writing certain scripts for some of these episodes. Does that mean we're going to get less of Barry next season? And we can speculate it now. It could either, A, he can do both jobs. He can be in front of the camera, be behind the camera. He might be stressed out, but he loves this show. This is his baby, right? So we have that aspect. Then we have the other aspect. Maybe Barry isn't as heavily involved in season 4. There's that side of the story. And then there's the more, well, what if Barry turns himself in? What if he gets arrested at the end of this season and he's off in jail in season 4 and all that stuff that comes with that potentially? Or, listen, this episode kind of showed it, that the death, is catching up to him. Could they kill Barry by the end of this season? I highly doubt it, especially unless they're going to change the name of the show and have these supporting characters lead the show. But I don't know. We'll talk about it more at the end of this video. But again, the best thing to talk about, we're getting to season 4, and that's awesome. But let me know what you all thought about the announcement and my speculation of what that can mean for Bill Hader's character come next season. But hey, we got this season to talk about in this 5th episode to break down. Let's get into it. Full spoilers ahead. As we open the episode with a flashback, and like I mentioned, I thought that Albert died. But we fast forward to the present timeline in which we see he has that scar from when he got shot on his cheek, and he is now a special agent. And this is the fun part, and this is why I love this show. He is here to help find the killer of Janice. And let me know in the comments now, did you all look at yourselves or look at your friend or family member or partner and say, what? What will happen? This is why I love this show. As we get back into it, Albert tells them that this whole Raven killer story, whoever made that up is a clown, and he gets to talking about Barry, and is in this moment when he mentions Barry, when he hears that he was just a part of it, but he helped someone out, he says, oh, that sounds like my friend, and it sounds like he still believes Barry is a good person, especially for saving his life. But then I start to think, well, if he starts to unravel what really went down, how long would he be friends with Barry? We'll get into that discussion a little bit later, but getting back into Albert here, he's pointing out, which we all know, the police are doing a terrible job at handling this case as he sees them making logos for the Raven, and Albert takes it upon himself to be more aggressive in looking into the Chechens. So we're going to talk about Albert and his aggressive move a little bit later, but again, let me know in the comments now, were you like me? I thought he died when he got shot in the face, but he's back. What does that mean for Barry? Let's go ahead and have those conversations in the comments. But let's go ahead and move on and check in with Sally in this episode, who is getting the spotlight on the Banji homepage. Her show is still rocking that high 98% Rotten Tomatoes. Her and Natalie decide to go on a trip to the coffee shop just to kind of celebrate, but also kind of live in that clout. But unfortunately, no one seems to care. And on top of that, her show is no longer on the streaming page, which we're going to get into the discussion here with this kind of her being in the limelight, what it can mean, and also the algorithm working for the people. But as we get further on, we see that her show has been replaced on the top spot. On top of the show is incredibly hard to find within the app. So then they go decide to meet with the executive who decided to make this move, only to find out that her show that just dropped on this Banji app 12 hours ago is canceled. Yes, canceled. Like her 15 minutes of fame is now running short to her surprise, all because of the algorithm. Now, let's have a discussion here. Barry is such a self-aware meta show. I love what this show has to say about like Hollywood, becoming an actor, what it can mean for you. The closer you get to fame, the less of who you want to be becomes something different. So I wonder if this is HBO's kind of like dig at, number one, Netflix. If you are a fan of Netflix like I am, they always cancel good shows because they assume people aren't watching it, right? So they can have a great season 1 of something and then just pull the plug the next day. So I don't know if this is HBO, or I should say not HBO, but the writers of Barry taking shots at streaming services a la HBO, or I should say Netflix, or maybe they're taking shots at HBO because there have been a few shows that HBO has canceled because of the algorithm or because of the, whatever excuse they make. I can think of a show right now, Lovecraft Country. My heart is forever broken, HBO, for canceling that show and not bringing it back. But that's another conversation for another day. But let me know if you all think this is HBO, or I should say the creators of the show, taking digs at the algorithm. And even so much so, the executive producer who made the decision to cut the show, she says that, hey, critical scores don't matter, and to be honest with you, no one really knows what they want. So let me know your thoughts on all of that. But more importantly, getting back into the conversation, we see Natalie attempting to try to give her some enlightenment and trying to give her some encouraging words. So getting into the meat of this scene, what do we think about Sally and what she's going through and just kind of this 15 minutes of fame just being like super quick, right? Do we think that she will just kind of fall back and not pursue this acting career and pursue trying to be a leading actress? Or do we think this is going to make her go harder, try to find other ways to get back in front of the camera? Will she just completely forget who she is and forget her story and just lie to the people to get on camera? Let me know your thoughts on where this is going to go with Sally, and we'll tie back to Sally a little bit later. But let's go ahead and check in with the Chechens and tie them back to what's going on with Albert. And shout out to the cameo. We get Michael Ironside makes a quick little cameo, and I think it's safe to say he'll be making a visit to LA sometime soon, especially after he sees this shit show. Getting back into it, as Batar is showing off the greenhouse because he believes this is a great cover-up for their drug operation, he decides to take higher ground, and he kind of accidentally falls into safety because, in perfect Barry fashion, going back to what Albert said, he is coming with the full force of the police. Same time the Bolivians are coming, and we'll talk about why they're there a little bit later, but in perfect Barry fashion, there's a shootout, and of course we end with a great explosion. This is why I love this show. Always expect the unexpected. But this is the moment where the actual title comes into the play of the episode, because we see that Michael's character says he's going to come to LA based on this crazy shit show, and we see Batar throws the phone down, runs away. I don't know if he's running for reinforcements. I don't know if he's scared for his life, but see that the higher people up in the Chechens kind of operation will be coming to LA. I don't know what's going to come of this. And we see, number one, there will be a war. There will be an all-out war. Who's going to survive? We'll find out. But there's a reason there's a war, and there's going to be a little bit more fuel to the fire or why there's going to be a war. But let me know what you all thought of that fight, that shootout, the Bolivians versus the Chechens. Let's have those discussions in the comments. As we check in what's going on with Gene in this episode, he is returning back on the set, and he even makes more apologies for throwing tea at the director, and things are starting to look good for Gene and his family as he wants to rent out a house for him and Leo and his grandson. He even makes the visit to Joe Montana's house in this episode, but yet again we hear that he had a bad experience with someone else. As they're at their table just kind of sharing good stories, Gene takes it upon himself to confess in all the wrongs he's done to Joe, and going back to just having the conversation about what's going on with Gene. And I think one of the main themes of this new season is, trying to make amends with your past, but also the things you've done in your past, they have consequences. As we see him talking to Allie and trying to apologize to what he did, he leaves out a big part of the story, which is Allie was kind of blackballed from Hollywood, and she takes it upon herself to just say, you screwed me over, and I think you're only doing this for your own well-being, not really to apologize to me. As she walks away, I hope we get more of Allie and her appearing in the show and kind of having a conversation of what happened in their relationship. But again, the important thing in this moment speaks to our main characters. Again, what you did in the past will find its way into the light. And we're going to talk about the light here in Barry in a second, but I'm very intrigued to see what happens with Gene, because it's so interesting to see Sally's career was up and up this season, but now she's kind of started from scratch if we're assuming that it's going to take her a minute to maybe get back in the limelight. Meanwhile, we see Gene, after 30, 40 years of trying to do all these things, being terrible to people, didn't get him anywhere. Now his career is starting to go up. So it's going to be very interesting to see, number one, will Sally and Gene, will they come back together? Will she use Gene as a way to get motivation? Will she try to work for him to get more stuff on TV? But it's just so interesting to see these kind of characters going through their kind of journey in Hollywood and what that can mean in regards to learning about their past. So let me know what you all thought about Gene and everything we got with him in this episode. As we transition over to not a lot going on with Fuches, but I think this is a very important scene as we see him continue to go on this recruitment of the Killing of Barry tour. We see that he meets with Tyler's sister by the name of Tracy, who of course he's serving as a PI again, and she could care less. She's like, I'm pretty sure my brother was in some messed up stuff, so I don't really care to know who killed him. But it's not until we see Fuches throws in the whole line that, well, the guy that's involved with your brother's death owes him $1,700 from that hot tub. We all remember what that whole conversation was with him and Barry in season 1. So it'll be really interesting. Is his sister just as crazy as her brother was? But also, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the video, who else will Fuches recruit? We're going to talk about that here. But let's check in with the new boss in town who goes by the name of Elena. And you can immediately tell that her men are afraid of her. And she's definitely someone you don't want to piss off, as she is there obviously because she just heard the news that her father's dead. And it's now time to check in with her husband, which she definitely does. Let's get into that scene here as we transition to Hank actually getting the call, finding out about the hit on the Chechens at the same time that Elena is looking for them. And this is where we see that Hank, it has to hide because they're in the house and they take Cristobal, and we see Elena looks around hoping to find a woman, but instead she finds a picture of her husband and Hank. And I have to applaud the camera work in this scene. We as the audience thinks that she's looking at Hank in the pantry, but she sees that picture, and I just love how they framed that. But more importantly, what is she going to do with her husband? Is she going to blame her husband on what happened to her father? Obviously, she just found out that her husband's having an affair with another man, so what does that mean for their relationship? And of course, like I said, this is just adding fuel to the fire between the Chechens and the Bolivians. It's an all-out war, but like I said, I think that she is someone not to play with. She seems to have a lot of respect amongst her men. She seems to be no shit type of nonsense. She doesn't seem to be like her dad, kind of like letting things slide. She definitely doesn't seem like her husband, who just definitely lets things slide. So I'm excited for this character. Let me know what you all hope to get with her in the rest of this season. But it's time to check in with our main character, which is Barry, as he's trying to move back in with Nick and Jermaine. We see Barry pays a visit to Cristobal and Hank, trying to get some advice about his recent breakup. And this is where Hank mentions that Barry can't let things keep being bottled in so many times, and he has to kind of open up more and be more of himself. Obviously not allowing people to know that he's a hitman, but he takes in this advice and wants to allow Sally to understand who he really is. So in the perfect Barry fashion, he goes to the local market store, takes some pencils and markers and things of that nature. He's on his way home, and well, you know who's at the front door and literally lets him in his house? It is Kyle, and his mom is there. They're having a conversation that she is determined that she has to be the one to shoot Barry. Well, she shoots someone in this episode, which we'll get into here. But as we shake up things, we go back into the conversation. Barry has left a note for Sally, returning the key, but also this collage about who Barry really is. And let's look at this collage here for a second. There's, Michael Jordan, there's Twix, there's donuts. There's literally the word good on this collage. So, Barry's hitting you. No, he's getting you in the heart, right? He's diving deep into who he really is. Barry is just so disattached. But let's talk about this conversation between him and Sally as she's arriving to the home with tears and she just wants to be left alone. And this is where Barry attempts to kind of help her after finding out the news, as Barry wants to do the Barry thing, which is go to the executive's house and just freak her out a little bit. Nothing bad. For example, leaving a picture of her sleeping at night, or just, switching out her dog with a slightly different dog. Nothing too drastic, changing the furniture to make it seem like she's shrinking, just to ultimately leave in the person's brain that they're just, eating themselves. Just this normal stuff, Barry, that he suggested. And I love that Sally's looking at him like, I need you to leave. You are psychotic. And yes, and this is a conversation we've been having for weeks, this is why I love this show. We have been following this show through the perspective of psychopath, right? So kind of inherently, we've been kind of rooting for Barry and wanting things to work out for him. But I love that this season is showing us he's not a good guy, but also his mental state, like the fact that he thinks that this is normal behavior, speaks so highly of his mental fortitude, but also it speaks to when he doesn't have an owner, because he's a loose dog, a wild, crazy dog at this point, and Fuches being that owner, Barry can run wild. So I think this season is really showing us how detached he is from just like human interaction and like normal interaction. So let me know what you all think about that scene, but we have to talk about the ending here. Let's get into it. As we wrap up the episode, time to kill Barry, and this is why I love this show so much, because you don't see things like this happening. As Julie and Kyle are in the car explaining what they're going to do next, she accidentally shoots her son in the stomach, and I'm assuming that she's taken him to the hospital. I don't know if he's going to live or he's going to die. Meanwhile, Barry is witnessing this, and he just, okay, just a normal day in LA, and just walks away like, Barry, you literally, now, I don't know if she would have been able to kill Barry just based on the fact that she just shot her son accidentally, but let's just run with that idea that Barry just literally was just seconds away from dying, which goes back to what I said at the beginning of this video. Can Barry die at the end of this season? But I thought that was just such a perfect way to end this episode, because again, we never know what to expect. When she shot, I'm not gonna lie, when she shot him in the stomach, I feel so bad because we already know what happened to this family. Do you think Kyle's dead, or is it just they're gonna go to the hospital? Or when they go to the hospital, how do you explain why you were outside, why you shot your son? Who's gonna learn about that? Maybe Albert's going to take on that case. But let's get into some final questions before we wrap up this video and give you my review. Questions I have for you all in the comments. Number one, going back into the conversation with Albert, him being involved in the case, will he discover that Barry was behind the killing? And if so, will he turn Barry in? Or based on Barry saving his life, will we get a scenario where he's just going to brush it under the rug? Let me know your thoughts there. Transition over to what's going to happen with Cristobal and his wife and their relationship, and Hank and Batar. Will the Chechens bring in a replacement? Will there be nice like Hank, or will they be really evil people? Let's discuss that. As well as another thing I want to mention on the table is Gene and this whole apology tour. Will it blow up in his face? Will he really mean it? Will he help Allie get her career back? And of course, another thing I want to know about Gene, Leo's mom, will she come into the picture? What happened in them and their relationships? Let me know your thought there. And this was the one I was excited to talk about. We know that Fuches is on this recruitment thing of bringing in people that were affected by Barry killing their loved ones or their friend or whatever the case may be. You know who is someone that I would love to see make a return that got away? Lily. I would love if Fuches can find Lily somewhere. Now, of course, there's schematics, there's logistics behind that. Last time she saw Fuches, she bit off his face, and she probably is gonna hate him. But we know Fuches can manipulate people, especially probably a child. So I don't know. I would love if they can find a way to bring Lily back into the season and get her revenge for what happened to her dad. That would be so awesome. But overall, just wrapping up the video, I love this episode. Again, I love just the unexpectedness of the show, the mom shooting the son, the whole theme so far of, what you did in the past catches up to you and what you did in the dark comes out to the light, and just the commentary about Hollywood, how you can think you're, making it, but then could just be taken away from you, and what that means for the characters, especially someone like Sally, and will she go back to Jean and get some advice? Because I really miss their chemistry they had together. So really good episode. Love what's coming up next in regards to what this means for the rest of the season. And again, we know season 4 is coming. So does that mean Barry will be involved? I don't know, but I just love talking to you all about this show. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, pros, cons, thoughts, theories, all that. Let's have those discussions. Thank you all again for watching this video. And before you all leave, do me a favor, make sure if you haven't already to like, share, comment, and of course subscribe, and come and join the Blockheads. We have a good time talking this show, other shows and movies, and live streams and everything in between. So thank you all for the support. As you can see on the screen now, come and join the community. Check out my previous Barry reviews, check out my most recent review, and we'll catch you all on the next breakdown.